Brilliance Audio.
Under a Sky of Memories by Soraya M. Lane, performed by Sarah Zimmerman. Evelyn lifted the hair from the back of her neck, grateful for the temporary relief. There was no wind to cool her skin, only the reprieve of her hair no longer sticking to her for a blissful few seconds. Her head was starting to pound, and she would have done anything for a glass of water and some shade. But instead, she was standing in an enormous group outside, waiting to board one of 2 railroad cars. She glanced down in dismay as she realized her uniform was damp, and saw that sweat was starting to trace a wet mark across the fabric. She hated to think how she'd look by the time they reached their destination, wherever that might be. It seemed their superiors preferred to keep them in the dark until the very last moment. As she looked around, Evelyn was grateful she wasn't the only one suffering from the conditions. The heat was sweltering, and most of the women looked like they were about to expire, their hair clinging damply to their foreheads, and their cheeks flushed pink. "Ladies first," someone yelled out from the train. "It's time to board." Evelyn shuffled forward, exchanging smiles with a pretty woman she'd talked to a few times during their stay in Louisville, where they'd been doing their specialist flight training. Dot? She racked her brain. Yes, definitely Dot. The training had been intense, and aside from the sheer number of men and women there simply hadn't been much time for socializing. She felt they'd barely had time to get to know anyone at all. "I feel like you could fry an egg on my forehead," Evelyn complained to Dot as they ended up side by side in line, noticing the way the other woman dabbed at her forehead. "I've never known heat like it." "Me neither," Dot replied. "I can barely breathe. The air's so hot. How are you keeping your makeup on?" Evelyn smiled. "I think we have to just give up on makeup for the time being. All the powder in the world won't stop our foreheads from shining now." She wanted to give poor Dot a hug. She looked so forlorn. Makeup was the least of Evelyn's worries, but from the way Dot was fretting, her appearance was obviously very important to her. "How red do I look? Is it terrible? I feel like a tomato." Evelyn patted her shoulder. "You look lovely, trust me." Dot didn't look convinced, but Evelyn noticed that the anxious dabbing had stopped. They shuffled forward again, and Evelyn couldn't help but be happy they were leaving Kentucky behind. The heat had been stifling on more days than she could count, with some of the girls passing out during training. And although she was grateful they were wearing pants for their work, she would have done anything for a skirt while she waited, to catch even a whisper of a breeze against her legs. "Come with me," Evelyn said, gesturing to Dot when they were finally on board. "Let's sit here by the window." They tucked in tightly beside each other as more nurses, medics, and officers piled into the rail car. She hoped they weren't going to be cooped up like chickens for too long. The humidity was even more unbearable inside. An officer leaned over to them to shove a window open, but when the train finally started to chug forward, the open window suddenly didn't seem like the best idea. "Close it!" someone yelled. Evelyn glanced at Dot, who was holding a handkerchief to her mouth and trying not to cough. Her own throat was beginning to choke up a little, but it wasn't until they started to move faster that the coal smoke billowing in made them all start to splutter. "Close those damn windows!" someone yelled again, and as Evelyn scrambled up to attempt it herself, a woman who looked completely unflustered appeared beside her and stood on tiptoes, pulling with her. Her hair was perfectly coiffed, swept over and pinned at the sides, with soft curls falling over her shoulder, and her high cheekbones made her look more movie star than nurse.